My name's Phil Simpson. I'm the product marketing manager for our business process management and business rules products. Today, we're going to talk about our new products in this space, our business rules management system and our new BPM suite. So I'm very pleased to have with me also Prakash Aradhya, who is the product manager for these products. What I'm going to do, I'm going to give you a very quick introduction to the technology for those of you that might not be familiar with BPM or business rules. And then I'm going to hand over to Prakash, who's going to take us through our products in more detail and give you a little demo. So feel free to ask me questions at any time. We can make this an interactive session. Very happy to have you guys all here. So here's what we're talking about. Yes, question.
Will this be available for download?
Yeah, the slides will be available, I believe, on Thursday. They should be available on the Summit site, so you can download them. All right. So the topic for the session this afternoon then is our products, business rules management system, and our business process management suite. These are both new products for us. BRMS version 6 was released in February of this year. We have had a business rules system in the market for some time. This is a brand new release with all new functionality. And the Business Process Management Suite, our JBoss BPM Suite, is a brand new product. It really is, if you like, our first entry into the real the BPM marketplace, and we're very excited about it. You may be familiar with the way the products are packaged, but as illustrated here, we're really offering two different products here. Business Rules Management System is for folks that need a business rules engine that are looking to automate business decisions. Business Process Management Suite includes BRMS, so that if you subscribe to BPM Suite, you get everything that's in BRMS, all the decision management capability, plus business process management. And there are three key technologies that we package in these products. We have business rules, decision management. We have complex event processing. Those two are packaged in the BRMS product. And then we have business process management, which is added with the BPM suite. So what I want to do before I hand over to Prakash is give you guys a little introduction to these technologies, what they're used for, why we think they're important, and why we've put them together in this way. So starting out with BPM, business process management. Every organization has processes, right? Business processes are the steps that an organization takes to carry out a business function. So in this example, maybe you have a company that's accepting orders, and you have essentially a set of manual processes for handling and fulfilling an order. And those processes involve several steps, potentially interacting with different systems, doing transactions on the shipping system, the catalog, maybe interacting with some packaged applications like SAP. Business processes are everywhere. Every organization has processes and has a need to manage the business processes. Another way of looking at this is essentially on the top of this picture here, you can think about processes as being the way that a company implements its strategy. You know, how do you process claims? How do you do business? What are the steps involved in all the processes that your organization uses? And at the bottom of this picture, we have the resources that you use to achieve those goals, to achieve those strategic ends. There are people, there are applications, there are back-end systems. And BPM recognizes that there's essentially a gap here between the ultimate goals of an organization and its ability to execute with the resources. BPM as a technology is intended to fill that gap, and without a BPM system, there are various problems that you can encounter. It's very hard to know what work is going on, what's going on within the organization, where everything is, etc. So BPM technology, and there's a quick illustration here of what a BPM system can do, is intended to fill this gap. And in its very simplest form, BPM is all about allowing the business to describe its processes, and typically in the form of a flow chart that describes the steps, how you get from one end to the other, how you get from order to cash, for example. And a BPM system drives individual cases through that defined model. So it really is a tool that allows you to model those processes, how you achieve the strategic goals, and then it enables you to automate those processes, to drive individual orders through the system and ensure that they go through the right steps at the right time. That's BPM in general. It's a very mature technology. It's been around a very long time. You can buy it from a lot of different vendors. One huge advantage of BPM is that it gives you much better visibility into what's going on within your organization. So given that the BPM system's managing all of these processes, we can get very good visibility as a business into where the work is within the organization, potentially where the bottlenecks are, where it might be going wrong, what we can do to improve the way their organization functions. So that's essentially BPM. 3 technologies, as I mentioned. The second one we've packaged is business rules management. And this is a technology that's perhaps a little more recent, a little more new compared to BPM. Business rules management is about automating and managing decisions. So in addition to managing our end-to-end processes, we need to make decisions at various points in that process. And here's an illustration of an example. I picked an insurance company. It could be any type of organization. And you think about a particular process, in this case, managing insurance claims. So claims come into this company, and it goes through a set of processes, a set of decisions, and eventually we make a decision. Either we're going to pay the claim or we're going to deny the claim. Outwardly, everything seems to be working. The company is rolling along. We're processing claims. We're making decisions. But typically, we see 3 problems that our customers are reporting to us. So first problem is the visibility problem, right? In most organizations, it can become very difficult for business users in particular to understand what were the rules that were applied to each of those insurance claims, especially if something goes wrong. So we pay a claim that we should have denied, and now as a business user, an insurance adjudicator, I've got to go in and find out why. Quite a lot of those decisions are made by applications. The rules are actually coded, they're in COBOL or RPG or Java. And as a business user, it's very difficult to understand what might have gone wrong. So visibility is a huge problem. Agility is the second issue that our customers complain about. Given that we need to make a change and change those rules, how do we do it? Well, typically you go to IT. IT will find the code that needs to be changed, design a solution, test it, roll it out. The whole process can take weeks. In today's business environment, that's often simply not good enough. We need to make changes in hours. Things, in order to remain competitive, organizations need to respond very quickly as their markets change. So agility is typically a problem with a traditional approach to decision management. And then finally, consistency. A lot of these decisions are taken by people. They're not all automated. Different people tend to interpret the same rules in different ways, given the same data. We have an example I like to quote. We have a customer in Latin America that is in the benefits business, as a government agency, and what they told us was their claimants would call into their call center in order to file a claim, and they would get an answer from the call center agent about how much they were entitled to. And if they didn't like it, they would call back in again 5 minutes later, speak to somebody else, and get a different answer. And they could keep doing this until they got the answer that they wanted. Consistency is a symptom of manual decisions that, and the fact that different people interpret rules and interpret data in different ways. As a business, particularly if we're in a regulated environment, we need to be able to prove that we're going to make the same decision every time. So these are the drivers, if you like, behind business rules technology. A business rules system basically says, well, take all those rules that are encoded in Java and COBOL and separate them out from your applications. Find a central repository where you can store those rules and manage them independently of the back-end applications. In doing so, we can make them visible to the business. We can address that visibility problem because we can display rules in ways that are more meaningful to the business. No longer code, but maybe in spreadsheets or some other English-like representation. It makes it much easier for the business users to see the rules that were applied and understand how they work. We can encourage business and IT to work together more effectively in order to make changes much more quickly. So we can address the agility problem. Both business and IT now see the same set of rules, and we can quickly change the rules without having to change the underlying application, so that we can respond much more quickly to change. And then finally, what happened? Finally, by providing an environment where we can manage business rules separately, we can start to encode many more rules and try to minimize those manual decisions, so we can improve consistency over time by encoding much more of the business decision logic within the BRMS. So that's business rules technology. Again, it's a technology we package with our products. It's a technology that's available from a number of different vendors. Essentially, they're all designed to solve these problems: consistency, visibility, and agility. One more technology to go through quickly: complex event processing. This is a very recent technology that came out of the capital markets space originally. Here's the problem that CEP is intended to solve. So as a business today, we're bombarded with data, much more data than at any time in the past. Most of that data is noise. Most of it's completely irrelevant. But somewhere within these tweets and these Facebook posts and these blog entries and everything else that's coming at our business, there's important information that has business impact. There's information or events that we need to respond to as a business. The trick is understanding what they are and finding them in all this data, in all this real-time data that's coming at us continuously. CEP is intended to address these issues that arise from that simple fact, that all that data. So it's very hard to derive business relevant information from that data. Important events and important patterns go undetected. So when people start tweeting about my product and complaining that it fails to work in some particular way, I can miss that completely and not respond unless we do something about it, unless we adopt a technology that can help us sift through all this data in real time. That is what CEP, complex event processing, is intended to do. The idea is you feed all this real-time data into your CEP engine, and it looks for patterns in that data and identifies things that are important to the business. Very interestingly, we can use or extend business rules technology to do this. So business rules typically operates on static data, insurance claims. But it's very easy, actually, and a very logical extension to extend that capability to real-time data, such as Twitter feeds, things that are changing in real time. And so we can start to see the relationships here between these three technologies. You can implement complex event processing in business rules. Oh, that's interesting. And in fact, there's a very tight relationship between these three technologies, and this really gets to the heart of why we have packaged these things together in these two products. So think about it, when an event occurs, something that's detected by the CEP engine that says there's a delay in shipping my product somewhere, what are we going to do about it? Well, the way you respond to an event is with a business process. There's a series of steps you have to take. There's a process that needs to be kicked off. So logically, you want to connect your event engine to your BPM engine so it can do that automatically. During the execution of that process, you're going to need to make decisions. How do you do that? With business rules. You need to be able to connect that business rule engine to the business process engine so that you can easily make decisions leveraging these three technologies. As processes execute, they generate more events that require more responses and so forth. So there's a very tight relationship between these three technologies. And that's the reason why we package them together in these products. We believe that makes it fairly unique. You can certainly source these technologies from many vendors today, but the level of integration that we're able to provide by putting them all together, we think gives us the ability to automate a much wider variety of business problems. It's very easy to call rules from the BPM engine to have events, kickoff processes, and so forth. So with that introduction, just a quick plug that we have a number of customers out there that believe that we're on the right track, and a few logos there and some quotes about the product that we have out in the field. So with that, what I'd like to do is hand over to our product manager. He's going to take us through the product in more detail and give us a little demo. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. I guess I probably need to climb up this stage because I'm a little short. You may not be able to see me. Great. So we have been pretty busy for the last 2 years, right? So we talked about, we are not new to the workflow business. We have had JBPM since 2003. We have a lot of customers who have used our workflow, lightweight workflow engine for years. What we did not have, that we recognized 2 years ago, a complete end-to-end solution, right? We did not have the complete BPM suite that, from the modeling to the monitoring. So that's where we recognized the gaps. About 2 years ago, if you recall, we went out and bought a company called Polymita. Right? Polymita is based in Barcelona. So 2 years ago, we bought them. If you were here last year, we laid out a plan, like how we are going to bring these two products together. What does it mean? So here we are. So we have brought them together. We have integrated them together. Here's our first incarnation of the integrated product, the BPM Suite 6. Even though it's the first time we are marketing it as a BPM Suite, but it's not that we are new to this market. We've had workflow technologies, but here is a complete solution for the BPM. So you saw the whole thing, like the BPM. So what does it include? What does the BPM Suite include? So on the left side, you see a big block with a lot of small boxes. So those are all the different components included in the BPM Suite, right? So it's built on top of our JBoss application platform, the flagship container. But again, if that's not your choice, we would love to see you deploying it on our container, JBoss application platform. But if you have your own choice, like WebSphere, WebLogic, Tomcat, we are very heterogeneous. We can deploy it on any of those containers. So we are pretty flexible, right? So we build on top of that, and then we have all the execution runtime fully integrated. The business rules engine, the event processing engine, the BPM engine, the task server, and then the new technology that we are introducing, I'll come to that in a little bit, the business resource planners. All of that nicely integrated, built on top of JBoss application platform. Then we have all the modeling tools that you expect, for the rules authoring, the process modeling, the data modeling, the form designer, everything that you expect in a BPM suite. We have all those modeling tools. And then when it comes to simulation, like the process analysis tools, so we have that out of the box. These are the pieces that we were missing in the past, right? And then we have for the execution part, like for the task management and the process monitoring. And then to top it all, we have the complete, fully integrated business activity monitoring, the dashboards, the KPI, all that stuff. And then on the right side, you see the BRMS platform. We did what we did in the past, like 2 years ago. We kind of included the BPM technologies under the BRMS, but we kind of diluted the name of the BRMS. So now we are making it right. We are positioning the BRMS as a real business rules management system, which includes all the technologies that are relevant to the BRMS, right? Business rules and CEP, and also we include the business resource planner there, and all the modeling tools relevant to the BRMS, and then the analysis tools. So we have two platforms, and some people believe, we've been articulating the integrated story of all these three technologies for a while. Some people confuse now, does it mean that are we breaking them apart? Actually, we're not. Our BPM suite is still a fully integrated stack. It has all the three technologies we talked about. But what BRMS means is it's a subcomponent of the BPMS. It's focused around the business rules. We have some customers, they say, hey, we don't need a BPM, we just need a business rules engine, business rules solution. So they can just use the BRMS platform. Or if you have a situation where you have invested in other BPM workflow solutions, but you do love to use BRMS because we are market leader in the BRMS space, you can use that option. So those are the two platforms we offer. So you saw all those different boxes. How do they tie together? It's kind of stacked up on one or the other, right? But in a typical architecture, the way it looks like, at the center, the core of it is all the execution engines, fully integrated, provided together, right? And then one of the new concepts we introduced in 6.0 is the execution server. So it's a complete black box. You don't need to, in the past, one of the flexibility we offered for both the rules engine and the process engine is the ability to embed these lightweight engines inside your application and deploy it. We still offer that. It's still a popular deployment option for a lot of our customers. But a lot of the customers came to us and told us, we really want to have a centralized execution environment. So that's why we recognized the need for it, and then we created this execution server in 6.0. It provides the three popular interfaces that everybody expects, the Java interface, REST interface, and JMS interface. Any clients you have, like either it's ESB or your own application, or even our Business Central, which is the one single unified user interface for all our end-to-end tooling, is called Business Central. Even that interfaces through the execution server through a REST interface. So the Business Central carries all the tools that, as I mentioned. On the development side, we have a repository. In the past, we had a different repository structure. So we replaced that with it's the most popular Git-based repository in 6.0. That's where you store and manage all your the business assets. On the right side, you see the deployment repository where you store all your deployment artifacts. So once you build your packages that you want to put it provision into the production, so you store them in the deployment repository, right? And all your running sessions and your process execution data is stored in the database and so forth. So this kind of shows how all the pieces hang together. So now let's look at one aspect I forgot to mention earlier. You heard Phil saying, "Hey, we have all these technologies integrated and three things together." I mean, what does this mean? Like, why do you care about the rules and events and the BP process together, right? It's probably three products in a box. Yeah, maybe that's one of the reasons. So you don't have to pay for three products with other vendors, But the real story is, if you've heard Gartner and some of the analysts talking about, this new term called the intelligent BPM, you probably have heard about it, right? Intelligent. What does it mean, intelligent? You have a business process. In a conventional way, what people used to do is they would lay out the whole control flow end to end and build in all the logic, the decision logic inside the business flow. Like for instance, you say, if this condition, take this path, if not, go this path, and then you kind of fork out, and within a short time, your whole process flow could be very, very cumbersome and hard to manage, right? That's one challenge you have. The second challenge you have is, the real value of the BPM is to provide a good interface between the business analyst and the developers, right? So they both speak the same language. And you expect the business analyst to go and make updates. So it's much harder for business analysts to go and make changes, business changes inside the workflow. Rather, it is relatively easier to go and make updates in the business rules, right? So now if you think about it, if you use the power of business rules and the real-time changes, the events, you can build a really powerful workflows. You separate out all this logic, the forking logic outside the workflow, and put them in your business rules, and then keep your business workflow really simple, so you can have a much more manageable workflow in the practice. So that's great. That's a great story. If you talk to all of our friends in the same space, like IBM and other guys, they all say yes. We can also solve the problem, right? So how they solve the problem? They have three different products. Right? They have a BPM product and rules product. All of them have to work over the wire. There's no built-in integration. If you talk to the iLog, iLog, so the rules engine, you expose your rules as a service, and then in the BPM, your task has to do a REST call to the service. That's not what we do. We have a fully integrated solution. In a task, you can just say, okay, these are the rules I want to execute. They all execute in the same VM, in the same process. So that's the level of integration we provide. So they are all it's much faster and it's cleaner. Not only that, as a developer, as an engineer, when you're trying to build a solution together, it's much simpler. One paradigm. You don't have to worry about understanding three different products, installing three different products. The learning curve involved is much, much smaller, right? So that's the real value. So, some of the analysts recognize us as it's not new today, right? We recognize this value proposition of bringing these three technologies together, probably 3-4 years ago, right? So a lot of the analysts recognize that we have one of the nicely integrated solution compared to any other vendors out there. So that's the story behind why we have these three technologies together and why we talk about this all the time, right? All right, now let's look at the whole the process cycle, right? The BPM is not a one-time thing. You just don't look at the problem space and build a solution and put it into production, right? It's a continuous thing. You start with the definition of the problem, work through the modeling, deploy it into the system, and go look at do the monitoring and analysis, and come back and fine-tune it and work with it. So that's one complexity in the BPM world. And the other complexity is like, there are different kinds of users. Like, if you talk about application platform, like somebody building an application, it's one developer creating an application. But in the BPM world, there are different target users. There are developers who are really hardcore with looking at building services, right? And there are business analysts, kind of, a little bit more technical, less technical compared to developers, but they only understand the domain, the problem domain. And they need a set of tools to interface with the system. And then we have the process developers who are responsible for deploying and so forth. And then we have the consumers, the end consumers. There are two kinds of different consumers, right? Like in a typical, like say, for example, loan processing application. There are people who are sitting in the in a corner, probably like very not so smart people, right? Their responsibility is to take care of actions, like approving loans or reviewing loan process and so forth. So they are not technically savvy. They need really, really simple and very intuitive tools. All that they need to take care of, take some action, right? That's another kind of user. So system should provide the right set of tools for those guys. And then there are managers, like who doesn't want to know what the business process. All that they care about is, show me how my business, what is the health of my business. I want to get a sense of like, how many orders are processed, how many orders are pending, show me the KPI, what is my SLA. Those kind of visibility they want to get. So their needs are different. So the BPM is trying to solve the problem for multiple users and going through a very complex scenario. So what I want to do is on the next few slides, I just want to walk you through all the different pieces that we have for each of those stages of the in the BPM cycle. And then I want to show you the product in action, like a quick view of how all these things look like in our product, right? So let's look at the core services in the BPM, like the most important one I talked about earlier, the execution server. A nicely integrated server. It provides all the typical interfaces for all your client solutions. It's a centralized execution. It can scale on its own. And it's, it also provides, if you have a remote client that needs to talk to the server, you don't need to go through like over the wire REST interface. You can use the Java client, which uses the REST underneath, right? So it's pretty flexible. You don't have to spend a lot of resource and energy figuring out all that like the way you did in the past. So let's look at the knowledge management, which is a very important aspect. Like you build all these assets, business rules and process, all this stuff. Like you need to worry about the version management and all the right set of tools for each of those assets. And then you want to do the validation, testing before you really take it to the next stage, right? So that's a critical thing. So all those tools are part of the core services we offer in the product. And then the choice of tools. I mean, traditionally Red Hat has been very comfortable for all developers. So they always love to work in the Eclipse-based environment where they want to do a lot of hand coding. So we still have people who want the more developer-oriented tools. We do have those tools, and at the same time, a lot of our resources and energy is being spent building out the web-based tools. So that's where we were trying to build out our product, right? So the integration, it's very important. Like it's not enough just provide a BPM. The common question that I keep hearing, like how do I interface with all this XYZ systems that I have, SAP system, Oracle system, or maybe like interfacing with a simple JDBC, right? So we do have for out of the box like web services, REST, JMS, those connectivity to the external systems. But if you need to go beyond that, if you need to work with other systems, we have a very nice integration with the Fuse service works. And at the same, you can also use Fuse. Fuse, if you don't know, Fuse services work is a kind of a layer on top of Fuse. It adds a few additional capabilities like governance and other stuff, right? So we have a nice integration between the two technologies where from our switch yard, which is our service ESB, like you could make calls with the process server, and then in our designer, there's a task that you can drag and drop, and now it can automatically configure it to the switch yard endpoints. So that integration is provided. So now the most exciting stuff, like the planner. This is a new technology we are very excited about introducing in this release as a tech preview, right? What does this planner mean? Like the planner is an optimization engine. It's a pretty loaded word. Like so there are a lot of different solutions you can think about using, right? So every operation has some constraints that you have to work with. There are limited resources. Based on those limited resources, you want to come up with the most optimal solution, right? So there are a lot of great examples, for example, if you look at the vehicle routing, it's a pretty intuitive example, you want to go from point A to point B, but what is the most optimal? There are various different, you want to go by the fastest road or the least fuel consumption, whatever, it makes sense, right? So you define all those constraints and give it to the solver that it comes out with the most optimal solution for you. And one of the, we have a few customers who have implemented a lot of really interesting solutions. We have one logistics company in Australia. They have these trucks. These trucks have multiple, the shipping truck moving from, the hundreds of trucks they have about 4 or 5 different sizes of boxes they have to ship. They needed to come up with the most optimal way of packing number of boxes to do the shipping so that they can reduce the cost. So they use this technology, our technology, and they build out a really great solution. And we have one healthcare company, scheduling is a very common solution that you can come across. In a healthcare organization, they have about 200 staff, hospital nurses working, and each of those nurses have their own schedules. Some of them say, hey, I can only work for 12-hour shift. But hospital says, okay, you can work 12-hour shift, but you cannot work 2 shifts in a row. Just imagine if there's a nurse working 24 hours. You don't want to be in that hospital, right? So those are the constraints hospital defines, and hospital says, hey, I got to have at least 10 child specialist nurses at any given point of time. Like that, there are so many constraints the hospital and the employees can have. And now putting all that together, just imagine an administrative office, people sitting there and putting out the whole sheet and coming up with a schedule. Okay, fine, they will do it one time, but guess what? Tomorrow, let's say 2 nurses called in sick. So now they have to go back and redo the whole thing again. Probably going to take a lot of people and a lot of time to come up with these schedules, right? So that's the problem the solver can solve, right? It can feed in all the data and it will come out with a nice schedule. It's just an example, but there are so many different examples you can think about. Even if you have in the BPM process, you have all your tasks. If you're working with let's say about a couple hundred tasks, you want to come up with a most optimal way to work on your task, right? You can use this technology along with your task manager to come up with a prioritized list of tasks, right? That's another example. So there are a lot of great examples that you can think about. So we are really excited about introducing this technology in this release. So now the core service is good. Now let's look at the modeling. The modeling, so that's the picture of the new interface we have. I'll show in the product a little bit. So we have really intuitive modeling tools. So a lot of these technologies, we took advantage of the acquisition we had from Polymita. For the data modeling, these are the tools that we did not have in the past, right? So these are the tools brand new in 6.0 for both BRMS and BPMS. The data modeling, you can intuitively create the data structure that you need to use in your business rules and the business process. The form modeler, that every human task requires some task form. So you do want to create a rich task form so that, for your end users who are going to work on this task. So that's a form modeler. The process designer has got a major facelift. So it's a lot more intuitive. There are swim lanes, pretty much everything that you would expect in a BPM process designer. When it comes to rules authoring choices, we always believe in giving you what you like. We don't force you to work only in the guided rule editor or just the DRL editor. I mean, whatever is your choice, we provide various different choices, right? The guided rule editor to kind of walk through intuitively and build your business rule. Or we have customers who are still sitting on a pile of spreadsheets where they have coded all their business rules. You can still work with that. You can, our system can work with those Excel sheets. Decision tables are the one where we are putting in a lot of investment over the last couple of years. It's kind of a web-based spreadsheet. It's very intuitive, and that's why that's my favorite authoring choice when it comes to business rules authoring. We also support rules templates and DSL and those sort of stuff. Simulation is another exciting thing. You can for each of the nodes you can go out and define the simulation parameters, and then you define the simulation scenario, like how many instances you want to run, run through that, and it comes up with a a nicely laid out graph with all the results that you would expect. Now, based on that, you can go back and fine tune it. It's a very powerful feature we have in 6.0. So we actually, right after this session, we have another deep dive session. Our lead, Chris, is doing a deep dive on JBPM 6. If you have a chance, please do attend. You get to see a lot of these things in even more deeper action. So the deployment is it's another change we have done in 6.0. It's a lot more flexible when it comes to how you want to provision your deployment packages. In the past, it used to be we had a proprietary packaging, all that stuff. Now it's Maven based. So once it's one click, build and deploy, it automatically pushes into the Maven repository, and the execution server listening to the Maven repository picks it up and provisions it for for the use. So that's our deployment and process monitoring. So the typical thing that you would expect, you want to look at all the process definitions, and you want to look at you want to start a process instance, or you want to work through look at all the process instance, and look at the details and look at the state of the process. All those features are part of the process monitoring. I'll show you some of those things in action. Then one of the features, as you can see in this example, you can see in a specific instance, you can see exactly where it is right now. It shows you the whole path that it took, and it shows with a red box, that's exactly where it is currently waiting, the state, right? So it's a very intuitive tool. And then managing tasks, right? The bunch of tasks that you need to work through. You want to look at all your task list, and you want to take some action, or you want to create a new task, or you want to delegate a task to somebody else. And if there could be a group of, if you are part of the HR group, so you might be part of that group, and you want to pick up a task that is assigned to the group and work through the task. So you can do those things, all those activities you can do in the task management. So these are some of the screenshots of the task management. And then finally, the monitoring, right? The monitoring, what do you expect? Like as a manager, you want to see the health of the business. You want to be able to visualize all the process states, and you want to visualize the KPIs, and want to build the dashboards, the way you want to visualize all the data. And you can change around things in the dashboards, and those are the stuff that you can do in the BAM. So some screenshots, as you can see, it's a pretty neat BPM dashboard. On the left side, you can see it shows all the different. As a manager, this is what I like to see. I don't want to see all the individual process. Like I want to see, okay, what are all the different processes currently running in my system? I have a bunch of leave management process, and the IT support cases, lead management, and purchase process. All that is great. And you want to look at how many instances are there. Different views you want to get, right? And then you want to look at all the instances created by user. Who started this many purchase orders. You want to get a much deeper view. And you can click through, and you can go to the next level, and you can look at by instance, by status, how many of them are pending. How many, like in that example you see, there are so many suspended purchase orders. Why are they suspended? You want to get a little more deeper into understanding those things. So that's the role of a manager, right? So this views gives very powerful visibility to the managers to understand what is going on in the system. Good. So that's pretty much it. So what I want to do is I want to quickly run through. I want to come back to this roadmap in a little bit. Let me do a quick demo. So let me start the server. So this is the example that I'm going to show you now. It's called the BPM example app. Okay. So this is called an example app. So my server started. So let me create a bunch of instances. So I go and start the. So this is a built-in example that you get as part of the product. When you download the BPM Suite, so there's another file that you're going to see. It's called BPM example app. It's an end-to-end example with all the most commonly used the tasks that you would expect. All right, so this is the interface. Let's see if I can. So this is the welcome page. So as you know, right now there's a lot of work we are doing to make it a little more dynamic. But as you can see all the different stages that you can walk through in the flow. So let me start with the dashboard. I think I probably watched in the keynote last couple of days ago, if you're there. So there are two dashboards comes out of the box. One is the business dashboard, and then the process dashboard. The business dashboard is a kind of a generic dashboard that shows you can put in any data source that you have. It could be like not necessarily the process related data. It could be any data. You can build dashboards around that around those things, right? So here is an example. Here it's showing the sales opportunities dashboard. So this comes out of the box. You can take a look at it, and you can use it as a template to create your own dashboard. It's pretty intuitive. So as you can see here, there are a lot of this is by status, by employees, and if you want to add a new panel, you can go here, and there are a lot of panels out of the box available here. So you can just drag and drop somewhere here. It's like a component architecture, right? It's pretty simple and intuitive. If you either click on this, when you click on this, it refreshes, and the whole page is refreshed, and each of the graphs are updated. Or you can go through here and you can filter through it, or you want to delete the filter that you just added, remove that. That's great. So it's pretty intuitive, and there are a lot of different options you have. There are two built-in business dashboards you have. Here is a different format. Like a table structure. You want to export this into an Excel file, you can do that. And if you want to add a new data source, it's pretty simple. You can just go and look at the data providers. These are all the data providers currently comes out of the box. You can create a new data provider, so where you define either a SQL query or CSV file. But wonder, okay, how do I define the data source? You go to the external surveys, and here you can add a new data source. As long as you have a JNDA name, it's pretty simple. You can add a new data source to the system. So it's pretty simple. So this is the business dashboard. But let's look at the most critical one is the process dashboard. So the process dashboard is where I want to see my health of my business process. I mean, this is not so colorful like the screenshot that I showed you, right? The screenshot was more colorful because there were a lot of different business processes currently running. But in my example, in my server, I only have one process that I'm going to show you, the example app process, right? But I have about 16 instances running, but they're all in a starting state. So that's why it's not so colorful, but it's okay. But here you can see all the different tasks. There are so many 8 tasks currently waiting on the appraisal stage, and there are 4 tasks in this stage. And you can click through and you can dig a little more deeper into this, right? So that's great. So let's look at the authoring environment. So it gives us a little bit of help. So you go through this, and they're organized in 4 different layers. The organization and so forth, and here you see all your assets. So my business process here, so here is my business process. So it's a very detailed process. It's a very detailed business process. As you can see, there are various stages, like the loan application coming through, you do the validation. That's a rule task, and then there's a service task to do an external call to surveys to get the credit report, and then it kind of pass through. In the validation, if there is any error, it goes back to a human task to do the data correction, and then it can follow through and then go through the mortgage calculations. There are a bunch of rule tasks. There are script tasks, the human task, a good combination of all the typical tasks that you expect in a typical business process. It's a great example if you're starting off creating a new application, new example. This is a good way to start with. So that's the BPM, the designer, and here you can see the DRL files, and then the decision, the guided rule there are a bunch of guided rules here. So you can click on that. You can look at the guided rule editor that shows one of the rules that is defined here. And then have a decision table here. You can look at the decision table. So it's a pretty nice layout that these are the tools that you want to expose it to your business user, right? So it's not that you expect them to go out and create this whole business process or business rules from the scratch. But this is much intuitive for them to go and say, okay, maybe if the credit score is less than 660, 10% is probably too much. I just want to go and change it to 9%. So that's a change a business user can do and just push it through the system without bothering the IT team, right? So this is the value of using more intuitive tools for creating business rules. So all these rules, just imagine if you had to do all these rules inside your business process, it could have been very, very complex. So that's a guided rule editor, and there are a bunch of forms, and you can also look at. Let's look at the data modeler. Where is the data modeler? So the tools. That's okay. So here is all my data structure that I've defined, right? So there's an appraisal. These are all the different properties that I have in an appraisal. I mean, this is now even business analysts and both developers can intuitively see what they're really using here. This is the data structure that is being used in both business rules as well as business process, right? So similarly, there are forms. There are so many different forms that are defined here. There are very simple forms. This is the form designer. What we have is some simple examples. You can look at those. And now let's look at the process definitions. So there's one business process currently available for me, which is the mortgage application, right? So I can look at the details of the business process, all the details, or I can create a new instance of the process. If I want to create a new instance, this is the task form that comes up, and I can fill up all the details, and I create an instance. But let me look at all the existing instances that I have. So now I have a whole bunch of instances currently running, right? So I want to take a look at one of the instances and see where it currently stands. So I want to look at the process model. So now this shows me this particular instance right now. It shows the whole gray area shows me the path that it took, and it is right now here, increased down payment. It came through the whole process and said, okay, the borrower does not have enough down payment. It needs to increase the down payment. So it goes back to the task, for the human task. A person has to call the customer and say, hey, can you add more money? Then it passes through once you go through. How do they do that? So they go through the task list, and a bunch of tasks are assigned to me. There are like some bunch of data correction tasks, bunch of down payment tasks. Like for example, here is the appraisal task. So I can look at the task, and I want to look at all the details. I want to work on this particular thing. Okay, I'm an appraiser. I'm sitting here, and I want to appraise this property. I went on site. I did the appraisal of the property. Come back here, and I think, okay, yeah, it is. I think it does. Oh, so that's right. That's right. So, thank you. So let me work on this now. 100,000. See, the tool is smart. It knows that you didn't claim it. That's good. So now I want to complete this task. So now if I go back to the process instances and I look at all the completed, there is one task that I can see, the one process, it's completed. And now I can look at the model and see, okay, what is the path that it took? Right? It shows me, this is the path it took, and it's completed. Mortgage is approved. That's great, right? So now if I want to go back to the dashboard, it's not the business dashboard. You can look at the task dashboard, the JBPM dashboard, and see the number of completed. There's one completed instance. There are 15 active. So it gives you a different picture, right? So this is all what I had on the demo, but please feel free to attend the next session where Chris is going to be walking through more details, even more deeper understanding of all these different technologies. So talking about roadmap, we released 6.0. We're excited about it. We released 6.01, which is a stability release with a whole bunch of updates and fixes. The 6.1 we are targeting the Q3 of this year. So there are a lot of little things that we are doing which we couldn't accomplish in 6.0. Basically a lot of user experience enhancement features, and the planner is going to be fully supported. If you are serious about using the business resource planner, start looking into it. So it's going to be fully supported, and we are also, I saw in the keynote, we got the cartridge, the BPM cartridge alpha release out there. So we want to take that to the next level and make it a little more robust. So we are working towards that. And EAP update, and 6.2, this is all for BRMS, right? So for the BPM, and in 6.2 we are going to go a little more further and trying to build a lot more productivity tools. So like especially case management tools, which is like very commonly used scenarios in the BPM space. So we want to enhance it and provide a more productivity tools to help in that environment. So this is pretty much what I had. So I think we can open up for a question, Q&A. So there are a bunch of other sessions that we have. So Bill, you want to come back? Yes, please. Yeah. That's a great question. I mean, I wouldn't call it like, the few service works come with the BRMS. That's a very heavy statement. What few service comes with is like, a built-in features of rules engine and the workflow engine for a specific needs inside in the few service works. So what you can do is when you are orchestrating services within the few service space, you can use the workflow engine that's included to orchestrate your services together. It's a very lightweight usage. It doesn't provide you a lot of the things that you expect. If you want to think about like all the modeling tools, not included, right? All the the monitoring, the dashboard tools, and then even the human workflows. You can't do that human workflow into few service works. But it's only for a specific net. When you are trying to use it along with the ESB, that's where it's supported the rules and JBPM. But at the end of the day, we don't want to tell you that you can't use this. We want you to use whatever solution you are trying to build, we want you to use it, but you need to take both the products and use them together. But it's a very limited usage in the few service work for what those two has. From Polymita. Let me answer your first question. What is you said Polymita? Yeah, it's a very. I mean, we spent about 1.5 years over to bring these technologies together. There are a lot of little pieces we took, but I think the most prominent one is the BAM, business activity monitoring, which is you just kind of took it as is and put it into the BPM, right? So that's a big piece in the BPMS. And there are other tools. The team kind of took some of the pieces and reworked it and re-engineered it in the newer structure in the BRMS, like data modeler, form designer. Those are all the things that we brought in. But there are a lot of small little pieces that we brought them together. Second question. Oh, the JBPM is so the way things are like in the community, we build all our technologies in open source. Like Rules is an umbrella project with all the rules related technologies, right? Similarly, JBPM is an umbrella project for all the workflow related technologies. Like our dashboard is a sub project under the JBPM. Like a JBPM 6, the engine, the process engine, and then the tooling, the designer, they're all part of the JBPM 6 community project. But we take all those projects and we take many other projects and create this platform. We go through what is called a productization process for about 4 to 6 months, bringing in all these technologies, different individual projects together, and tie them together and then release a product. So they are the core pieces of the product. Make sense? Yeah, we can spend a little more time offline. Any other questions? Go ahead. So, yeah, I mean, so there are multiple options. Like, you have the execution server, which is a clusterable. It can participate in a clustered environment. So we have the container, the EAP. That's the one that any EAP or WebSphere or whatever you use that provides the infrastructure to do the scaling.
So let's say you have two servers and they have individual processes running. You will support automatic failover in case one of the servers goes down. That's something that's supported or not.
Exactly. Most of those things are provided by the container, so that our application, the layer sits on top of it, takes advantage of that. So we have customers built out those solutions, like the failover solutions and things like in an architecture. You need to come up with an architecture how to handle those things. Pretty. Yeah, we do. Our services team has a lot of experience doing those things, so we'll be happy to get them in touch with you. Yes.
First question, in the release you added a handful of very basic services. What is the roadmap? What's the intention?
You mean the out-of-the-box connectivity to the external system? So what we have right now is out-of-the-box is REST, web services like the SOAP or JMS, pretty much everything provided by the container, whatever container provides, right? Beyond that, we have a good integration with Fuse. Fuse has like 150 plus connectivities. So the roadmap today, you could do, you can use them together, over the wire. But one of the things that we are working in 6.1 is to run the whole BPM inside Fuse as a container. So that way you can take full advantage of all the camel routes available out of the box. But otherwise, if you don't want to run inside Graph, you can still use them together and do it together today.
The second question, on there you had execution server. I'm not sure if it's the same as what I see over there. It's called the executive server, which allows you to do asynchronous calls on your diagram. Is there going to be more build out around that executive service?
The execution service to make us asynchronous calls. So, I mean, again, the making asynchronous calls, all those things is part of your orchestration, like in the control flow. Yes, there are like built-in features like how to do those things. But I think Chris has a session now, starting in a little bit. I think he's going to go a little more deeper and explaining even more details about the execution server, how it works, and what are there are like different strategies that you can define in the execution server, like single session or per user session, all of that stuff. I think he's going to go through those details in the next session. I guess we are pretty much out of time. We'll be outside in the hallway if you want to catch up and want to have any more questions. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much, everybody.